there is a very small moon orbiting Saturn. You could fit it inside the continental United States with room to spare. It is bright white, almost perfectly round, and for a long time, nobody paid it much attention. Its name is Enceladus. Then, in 2005, something remarkable happened. Scientists discovered that this quiet little moon was not quiet at all. It was erupting. Jets of material were shooting from its south pole into space, rising hundreds of kilometers above the surface before fanning out in every direction. The assumption at first was simple: water. Just frozen water spraying into the void. But here is what we know now. It is not just water, not even close. To understand what was found inside those plumes, you first have to understand how we found it at all. In 1997, NASA launched a spacecraft called Cassini. Its mission was to study the giant planet and everything orbiting it. Cassini arrived at Saturn in 2004 and began a long, careful survey of the system. It carried 13 scientific instruments, including a device called the Cosmic Dust Analyzer. This instrument was designed to physically catch particles in space to fly through material and measure it on impact. When Cassini made its first close pass of Enceladus in 2005, scientists saw something no one had quite expected. The south pole of the moon was venting jets of material through long, narrow fractures in the ice. These fractures were later nicknamed the tiger stripes, and they stretched for dozens of kilometers across the surface, running parallel to one another like cracks in old paint. From these cracks, material was escaping at high velocity, shooting upward into space in tall, ghostly columns. Cassini flew through those columns, and it tasted them. Here is what the data showed first. The plumes contained water ice. That part made sense. Enceladus is a frozen moon, and the material erupting from it was clearly icy. But then came the other readings. Salts, silica, hydrogen, ammonia, organic compounds. The presence of sodium salts was the first real clue that something deeper was happening. On Earth, salt water forms when liquid water stays in contact with rock for a long time. The salt from the rock dissolves into the water. So when Cassini detected sodium in those ice grains, it was not detecting a surface process. It was detecting a chemistry that could only have happened deep underground, in liquid water, in contact with a rocky floor. That pointed to something beneath the ice, an ocean. And over the next decade, the evidence built steadily. Measurements of the moon's slight wobble as it orbited Saturn revealed that the icy shell was fully detached from the rocky core inside. That meant liquid water filled the space between them. A global ocean surrounding the entire rocky interior, sealed under a shell of ice between 20 and 28 kilometers thick. Then came the hydrogen readings. The amount of molecular hydrogen in the plumes was so large that it could not be explained by any passive process. Something was actively producing it. And the most likely explanation was hydrothermal vents fissures on the ocean floor from which hot, mineral-rich water rises, driven by heat from inside the moon. On Earth, ecosystems thrive around vents like these. Entire communities of organisms exist without sunlight, using chemistry alone to sustain themselves. So what had started as a detection of water ice had become something far more complicated. Let us walk through what is actually happening inside Enceladus, as best as science currently understands it. At the center of the moon is a rocky core. Around that core sits a global ocean of liquid salt water. Above the ocean is the ice shell, and at the South Pole, where the ice is thinnest, fractures reach all the way through it. Pressurized water from the ocean rises through those fractures and erupts into space. The ocean is kept liquid by heat. That heat comes from tidal flexing. As Enceladus orbits Saturn, the planet's enormous gravity pulls on the moon unevenly, stretching and squeezing its interior with every orbit. This friction generates heat, and that heat keeps the ocean from freezing. In 2025, a new study provided the first direct evidence of significant heat flowing out from Enceladus's North Pole. That was unexpected. Scientists had previously assumed the active heating was confined to the South Pole, where the plumes are. But measurements from Cassini's infrared instrument showed the North Pole running around 7 degrees warmer than models of passive cooling predicted. The only explanation that fit all the data was heat leaking up from the ocean below. When researchers combined this new North Polar measurement with existing estimates from the South Pole, the total heat escaping the Moon reached approximately 54 gigawatts. That is roughly the equivalent output of tens of thousands of wind turbines, all running simultaneously, pouring energy into space from a moon smaller than Great Britain. And here is what matters most about that number. It closely matches the estimated energy input from tidal heating. The heat produced and the heat lost are approximately in balance. That balance means the ocean is not a temporary feature. It is stable. It has very likely existed for a very long time. Now, the plumes themselves. For years, scientists analyzed ice grains that Cassini collected from Saturn's E-ring. The E-ring is a vast, faint halo of material encircling Saturn at the distance of Enceladus's orbit. It is continuously fed by the plumes. The grains in it are, in a sense, old mail from the moon material that erupted and then drifted outward into the ring system. From those grains, researchers identified a range of organic compounds. Organic, in chemistry, simply means molecules containing carbon. These included compounds with nitrogen and oxygen. Some were relatively simple, some were surprisingly large and complex, but there was a problem with using the ring grains as evidence. By the time those particles reached the ring, they had been there for months, some for years. Saturn's magnetosphere is a powerful radiation environment. High-energy particles can react with the molecules on the surface of ice grains, altering them. What Cassini was tasting in the E-ring might not perfectly reflect what had left the Moon's ocean. What researchers needed were fresh samples. Grains ejected just minutes before detection, before radiation had time to change them. They already had the data, they just had not yet fully analyzed it. In 2008, during a mission phase designated E5, Cassini executed its fastest close approach of Enceladus. It flew directly through the densest part of the South Polar Plume at a speed of nearly 18 kilometers per second relative to the Moon. That is fast, extremely fast. Ice grains struck the cosmic dust analyzer at hypervelocity, and the impact was so energetic that it vaporized and ionized the grains almost instantly. The resulting charged fragments were swept into the instrument's mass spectrometer, which sorted them by mass and charge, producing spectrochemical fingerprints that researchers could then analyze. The data was collected and sent back to Earth. And then, for years, it largely sat waiting. Part of the delay was practical. The E5 flyby operated in a special instrument mode that collected data at 5 times the normal rate, compressing the mass range and reducing resolution. The spectra were noisier than usual, and only a fraction of them carried signals strong enough for reliable interpretation. Part of the delay was knowledge. Researchers needed years of additional laboratory work to build the reference database that would let them decode what the spectra were saying. Interpreting a molecule from a hypervelocity impact signature is not straightforward. It requires matching fragment patterns to known compounds, accounting for the way high-speed impacts break molecules differently from standard lab techniques. By 2025, the team was ready. And the reanalysis of those 17-year-old measurements changed the picture significantly. Here is what the fresh plume ice revealed, and some of it was genuinely unexpected. The team confirmed what had already been found in the E-ring aromatic compounds and oxygen-bearing organic molecules were present, and now proven to originate from the ocean itself rather than from space weathering. That confirmation alone mattered. It closed a question that had lingered for years. But then came the new detections. The first group was esters, An ester is a type of molecule formed when an alcohol reacts with an acid. On Earth, esters show up in fats, in fragrances, in the membranes of living cells. Lipids, the molecules that form cell walls, contain ester linkages. Finding esters in the plume of a moon with a liquid water, ocean, and hydrothermal activity was not a trivial result. The second group was ethers. Ethers are molecules built around an oxygen atom bonded to two carbon chains. They are less common in comets than in rocky bodies like carbonaceous meteorites, where they occur as structural bridges within larger organic materials. Their presence in Enceladus's fresh plume suggested that similar chemistry might be occurring inside the moon. The third group was alkenes. Alkenes are molecules containing carbon-carbon double bonds. They are reactive compounds that serve as intermediates in many chemical pathways, stepping stones between simpler and more complex molecules. In submarine hydrothermal systems on Earth, alkenes participate in reactions involving hydration, oxidation, and chain building. And then there was a fourth, more tentative detection. Some spectra showed signals potentially consistent with compounds containing both nitrogen and oxygen molecules that could include derivatives of pyrimidine and pyridine, among others. These are the kinds of structures that underlie nucleotide bases, the chemical letters of DNA and RNA. None of these detections individually proves anything about biology, but taken together, they reveal a chemical environment of surprising complexity. Now, here is where the story gets subtle. The ice grains in the E5 dataset were not just any samples. They had been inside Enceladus's ocean until approximately 2 minutes before they hit Cassini's instrument. Researchers modeled the residence times of plume particles based on trajectory and mass, and the large, organic-rich grains had almost certainly just left the ocean. At that freshness, the radiation argument collapses. Saturn's magnetosphere is powerful, but it does not produce complex cyclic esters and ether chains in 2 minutes. The chemistry in those grains had to have come from below. Interestingly, some of the compounds newly identified in the fresh plume grains had not been detected in the older E-ring grains. The researchers considered several possible explanations. One was that clusters of water molecules at lower impact speeds had been obscuring the signals, acting, as one scientist described it, like a curtain hiding the view. At nearly 18 kilometers per second, the impact energy was high enough to shatter those water clusters and open the curtain. A second possibility was that some of these compounds were genuinely altered or destroyed by radiation during the months they spent in the E-ring. Ethers and alkenes, in particular, can be unstable under prolonged radiation exposure. The implication is that the E-ring data, useful as it has been, was giving researchers an incomplete picture. The ocean is likely even richer than those older measurements suggested. To appreciate what makes these findings significant, it helps to put them in context. What does it mean to find esters, ethers, and alkenes on an icy moon of Saturn? On Earth, ester compounds form naturally in hydrothermal systems under what chemists call reductive conditions, environments with low oxygen and high heat. Researchers have demonstrated in laboratory experiments that esters can form from lipid precursors in the presence of ammonium compounds, and that these esters can remain stable under hydrothermal conditions. They carry a chemical signature that distinguishes them from biologically produced esters. Ether compounds have been found in carbonaceous chondrites, a class of ancient meteorites that preserve some of the earliest chemistry of the solar system. In those meteorites, ethers appear as bridges between aromatic structures within large, insoluble organic molecules. Their presence in Enceladus's plume suggests that similar aqueous and hydrothermal reactions could be occurring inside the moon. Aromatic compounds, the ring-shaped carbon structures also detected, are known from both comets and meteorites, and from Earth's own deep-sea vents. At high temperatures, single-ring aromatics serve as starting points for more complex organic chemistry. They are, in a sense, foundation molecules. When researchers compared these detections with predictions from computational models of hydrothermal chemistry on Enceladus, there was substantial agreement. Models of warm, chemically active hydrothermal environments predict the formation of aromatics, esters, alkenes, aldehydes, and some nitrogen-bearing compounds. The ether compounds were less well predicted by existing models, suggesting either that the models are incomplete or that there are additional chemical pathways at work. Separately, laboratory experiments simulating Enceladus-like conditions using a mixture of carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, and water under high pressure and at temperatures up to 150 degrees Celsius produced amino acids, aldehydes, and nitrile compounds. When the products of these experiments were tested in a laboratory instrument designed to replicate the cosmic dust analyzer, the mass spectra closely matched some of what Cassini had recorded. So the chemistry is not just observed. In some cases, it has been reproduced. But not everyone agrees on where these molecules come from. In September 2025, a separate team presented findings at a major planetary science conference in Helsinki. They had conducted laboratory experiments simulating the radiation environment near Enceladus. Using a mixture of water, carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia, chilled to about 200 degrees below 0 Celsius, they bombarded the ice with ions atoms stripped of their electrons, replicating the charged particle radiation that saturates Saturn's magnetosphere. The ions reacted with the ice, and the reactions produced organic molecules, carbon monoxide, cyanate, ammonium, various alcohols, and precursors to amino acids all appeared in the experimental products. The researchers were careful about what they concluded. They did not argue that the ocean was uninhabitable or that the plume chemistry was uninformative, but they raised a legitimate question. When Cassini flew through those plumes, could some portion of what it detected have been produced not in the ocean below, but on the surface of the ice, or within the tiger stripe fractures, through radiation-driven reactions? That possibility cannot be dismissed. The counter-argument from the Kawaja team is grounded in timing. The large, organic-rich grains in the E5 dataset had been in space for approximately 2 minutes. High-energy radiation can certainly drive chemistry on exposed ice surfaces over days or months. Whether it can produce the specific complexity of molecules detected, including cyclic structures and multifunctional organic compounds in 2 minutes, in grains traveling upward through a plume, is far less clear. This is where the science currently stands. 2 real findings, one pointing strongly toward ocean-derived chemistry, one raising a caution about surface processes, both serious, both unresolved. The most honest statement of the evidence is this: some of what erupts from Enceladus almost certainly comes from the ocean. Some of it might be modified or even produced on the way out. Distinguishing between these 2 contributions is now one of the central challenges of the field. Step back for a moment and consider what has been found across all the Cassini data. Life as we know it on Earth is built primarily from 6 elements: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. Scientists sometimes refer to these collectively using the acronym CHENOPS. They are the chemical alphabet of biology. In the plumes of Enceladus, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen has been detected. Phosphorus was confirmed in 2022, detected in the form of phosphates in Cassini's E-ring data. That detection completed 5 of the 6 CHENOPS elements in material from Enceladus. Geochemical models, published in 2025, suggest that dissolved sulfur and iron may also exist at the ocean floor in concentrations relevant to microbial processes. Liquid water is present. An energy source in the form of hydrothermal activity is present. Complex organic molecules are present. The CHNOPS elements are present. To be precise, having the ingredients does not mean the meal has been made. Habitability and inhabitedness are different things. The conditions that could support life do not guarantee that life exists or ever existed, or that it arose in the particular way required. Scientists working on this are careful to distinguish between a potentially habitable environment and a confirmed inhabited one. But the checklist is filling in. The microbes at the base of these ecosystems are chemosynthetic. They extract energy by driving reactions between chemicals available in the hydrothermal water, hydrogen, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and their surroundings. This chemistry does not require light. It requires only a chemical gradient and the right catalysts. If Enceladus has hydrothermal vents on its ocean floor, it has that gradient. The hydrogen in its plumes is direct evidence of water reacting with rock at depth. Researchers have also noted something specific. Even a single bacterial cell enclosed inside an ice grain could theoretically be detectable by a sufficiently sensitive mass spectrometer. Laboratory tests demonstrated this directly. If microbial life exists in Enceladus's ocean and is being incorporated into ice grains as they form at the ocean's surface, there is a pathway by which evidence of that life could reach a spacecraft flying through the plume. That is a remarkable thought. The ocean of another world, sending its contents into space, a spacecraft there to catch them. Cassini was not designed for this. The cosmic dust analyzer was built for a different era of questions, but it detected what it detected, and the data survived. Cassini ended its mission in 2017, deliberately plunged into Saturn's atmosphere to avoid any risk of contaminating the moons it had studied. But the data it left behind has continued to yield discoveries ever since. Enceladus has a global saltwater ocean beneath an ice shell roughly 20 to 28 kilometers thick. The ocean is in contact with a rocky core. Hydrothermal activity is occurring at the ocean floor. The CHAINOPS elements, the chemical building blocks of life on Earth, are all present in plume material. Complex organic molecules, including previously unknown esters, ethers, and alkenes, are present in freshly ejected plume ice. The Moon is losing heat from both poles, with a total estimated output consistent with long-term stability. The energy budget is approximately in balance with predicted tidal heating. Whether the organic molecules in the plumes originate from the ocean, from surface radiation processing, or from some combination of both, whether amino acids exist in the ocean, whether the ocean has been stable for long enough for biological processes to begin, whether any of the chemistry occurring within the Moon has crossed the threshold into biology, and what, exactly, the large complex macromolecular compounds previously detected in the E-ring actually are their structure and origin remain incompletely understood. Consider what we are actually talking about here. A moon smaller than the state of Texas, orbiting a planet more than 1 billion kilometers from Earth, has an ocean. Not a frozen lake, not a shallow pool. A deep, global, saltwater ocean, sealed under kilometers of ice, warmed from below by the same geological forces that heat Earth's own seafloor. That ocean is producing organic chemistry, complex chemistry. Chemistry that includes the molecular families that, on Earth, are involved in building cell membranes, encoding genetic information, and driving the metabolic reactions of every living organism we have ever studied. We have not found life on Enceladus. That needs to be said clearly. What we have found is a set of conditions that, by every framework we use to evaluate habitability, qualifies as favorable. Liquid water. And those plumes. Those quiet, constant eruptions from the South Pole, rising into the dark and spreading across the ring system. They are, in a sense, an invitation. The Moon is offering its contents to any instrument willing to fly through and listen. Cassini accepted that invitation and sent back data that researchers are still decoding years after the spacecraft is gone. What NASA found erupting from Enceladus was not just frozen water, it was salt from a hidden ocean, hydrogen from hydrothermal vents. Esters, ethers, and reactive carbon chains formed in darkness beneath kilometers of ice. What was rising into space was not a frozen spray, it was ocean chemistry launched directly into orbit.